Hi, welcome to toddfun.com, where I do what's fun. Another product review. I bought this one myself with my own money because it's something I wanted. I've wanted it for a long time, and the prices were too high. And then the prices came down, and they came up with a new version, and in that version the price was too high. But now that new version, the price came down, and it is the Power Probe 4. It's for doing automotive work. Now this is a tool, if you're not familiar, for essentially doing circuit testing. Automotive circuit testing voltages, whether or not you have the right voltages. Yes, you can use a multimeter to do that, but the nice thing about a tool like this is it's hooked up to the electrical system of your vehicle, the battery specifically, and when you're testing circuits, it's not only just saying, do you have voltage, but is it a good, strong connection? Because you can have voltage and have a poor connection. And this will actually test and tell you, yeah, you do have a green light, you have a good, strong, current flowing connection, because otherwise you're chasing your tail sometimes when you have voltage, yet it couldn't, it isn't going to get to your component anyway. It also lets you test components. You can actually turn components on and off. There's a few videos out there on the Power Probe 3, which this is a real good upgrade to that, but the videos aren't that good. I think Power Probe company themselves make a few good videos. So I will link to their manual so that you have a good look at what's in their manual. They make a great manual. The online manual, the PDF online is amazing. So it's really one of the better manuals you'll see in a product. But I'll link to that at their site also with their videos. But there isn't a lot of really good Power Probe 4 videos out there showing what does it look like, what do I get in the box, what else should I get to make this tool complete, and maybe a few things of seeing it used up close. I won't do all of that in this video, but I will show the unboxing, flip through the manual so you understand the feature set, why I want to use this on the vehicle for a particular project right now actually. And then I'll wrap it up, and then I'll probably post some more videos and make a playlist of the different things I use the Power Probe for to make working on vehicles easier than trying to use a multimeter or just making and rigging up connections just to test if something works. It makes things very simple. There's another Power Probe, they call it the Power Probe Hook, but that is absolutely a different class of machine than this. It can do some of the same things, but it's bulkier, it's bigger, it's just not it's not the tool you want just for simple automotive work. Another thing I bought with it because I knew I needed it was essentially the Power Probe lead test lead set. Now, technically this is for the Power Probe 3 and lower, but from what they don't show really good pictures of it anywhere, and so we'll take a good look at what's in it. But I was pretty sure that this was going to make a pretty good lead set for the Power Probe 4, because the set for the Power Probe 4 was twice as expensive, had less of the things I kind of wanted in it. And so it was just cheaper to buy this and get what's in here, and then those extra things that I wanted, I just bought back probe sets separately. So let's go to the bench. Yeah, I got this one for $153 off of Amazon, free shipping. I'll put a link to that in the show notes and as well as at Todd Fun. If you use the link, it goes to my Amazon store, and that is how I kind of make money, is people buying things off Amazon after seeing something I might review. This is something I bought myself. This is not a product review from the company. Okay, so, and yeah, they have this PDF of this online, and yeah, this is exactly the same. And yeah, very nice manual, yes. And having a good manual, especially having it online like that, and I'll put a link to this manual in the show notes so you can go through it and understand exactly what the features are. It shows you a pretty good picture of what you're going to get with it. You're going to get the probe with it'll have an alligator clip that goes on the ground, a couple alligator clips for the positive and negative of the battery, and then this 23-foot cable with the ability to add an extension here if you wanted to. They talk about the features. In a nutshell, these are the 8 features. Its default is voltage DC testing up to 200 volts. And they show that it does have a colored screen, and it's almost 50% bigger than the previous Power Probes, and it works in sunlight, so that's really, really nice. They show you doing, basically it's going to go through and show each one of those summaries that we just saw. You can load test things like fans and bulbs and stuff like that. It has a built-in circuit protection, so if it overcurrents, it will actually trip. But it resets too, meaning that if you manage to overcurrent this thing, it'll have a resettable fuse in it that will essentially cool off and then reset. So you have that protection too. Also, you can't, if you're powering something like in this feature, you can't do that in the modes where you're doing other types of tests. That only works in the volts test, in the VDC test, the default mode, the volts DC mode. So that's the only time that button will actually actuate power to something, as opposed to just testing it passively in these other features. The feed test, that's where it's going to show you whether or not you have a good power source. It'll tell you the resistance of the circuit that you're on. It'll tell you the battery and the tip voltage. And the battery voltage and the tip voltage can't be off by, I think it's like half a volt. And then if it is, then it'll basically say something's wrong. And it'll show you the resistance of the line. So if you're not getting, you might be getting voltage. Hey, you might be getting 12 point, some volts. But if that's got a high resistance, then you'll know that the circuit's no good. But you do have to take the component out to do that test. You don't do that. In the case of this is a motor, take the motor out of the circuit, and then you do your power feed test. If you use the ground clip, then you can use it as a voltmeter. So it has normally just uses the ground for the power. But if you use this green ground and you clip it on, you could test like the resistance of your motor. You could go right across your motor then. And then you can be in this mode and actually basically use it as a digital voltmeter. So that's nice to have that extra feature there. This is the AC testing. Even though it says this will test up to 200 volts AC RMS, and then show you the min and the max that of that. But it's mostly, they really just mean this for testing, like something like the output of your alternator, or other times when you just want to know general current RMS, or voltage RMS. If you go online, you'll notice they say if you hook this thing up to 120 AC mains, you'll kill it. I don't know why they say that, because if it can do 200 volts AC RMS, then it can do it, or it can't. So there's no difference. I mean, so maybe they're just saying that just because people are really doing stupid stuff or something. I don't know, but if it can do 200 volts, it should be able to do it. If they say it kills it, I won't test it. Peak-to-peak voltage. So you're going to see, what's the lowest and what's the highest. In this case, a min is like under a volt, and the max is like almost 9 volts. But this is the difference between those two. Now, what is interesting is it says that it was going to show you the AC signal, that's either minus 50 to plus 50, for example, is what they're saying here. Even though this thing can go minus 200 volts to plus 200 volts. It says that right there. But they're just saying, as an example, if you were reading, say, 100 volts and it was minus 50 to 50, you would see 100 up here and minus 50 here and plus 50 here. But down here, yeah, it's right underneath my finger here. It's right there. Lowest absolute voltage and then the highest absolute voltage. So there's not going to be a negative sign from what they're saying. So you're going to have to be careful you catch that the difference is showing you that. But how often do you have negative voltages in a car? It's just not that big a deal. And you can't hook it up to mains, they just said so. It would be a kind of a silly way to do a testing like that anyway. But this is the frequency counter. If you're going to have something that's going to show pulses like MAF or MAF sensor or wheel sensors, it'll show you the frequency as well as the pulse widths, the negative pulse widths and the positive pulse widths. So that's nice. That's what I could test servos with, I'm sure. Now this is the Power Probe ECT. The ECT is a separate device. You have to get the ECT 2000, and when you hook the ECT 2000 up to the circuit, then it comes with a wireless sensor that you find your short with. Okay, fine, that's kind of clever. But then sometimes you can't pinpoint the exact wire. You just know that the short is there because it's a wireless sensor. And then you start using this in the PPECT mode, and then you can start probing the actual wires. Okay, well, it's going to send that signal down the wire, and you're going to find out where that wire is open and closed by probing with this. And that's where the extra lead test is going to come in. And this is testing your fuel injectors. So you back probe your fuel injectors, and it'll tell you what your battery voltage is going in, what it drops to when it fires it, how long is it going to fire it, and then what your essentially your kickback is, your freewheeling kickback voltage is, which can spike quite a bit. You want this to look the same, and you're not going to see the scope on here, but what you will see is you will see those measurements. You will see how long was it on, what the voltages were, what the battery voltages is. So if you read this page and you want to do fuel injection testing, you can decide whether or not fuel injector is not responding properly and or getting controlled properly. And then this is advanced testing, where you're gonna hook up to your control unit for your vehicle, and then you usually will use a advanced scanning tool that you can send signals to your electronic control module to say it activate something. And then if this is hooked up to that circuit instead of the actual device, this will tell you whether or not it's successfully activated. Did the ECM function correctly? Because the ECM is bad, it might have bad transistor output or something like that, and can't actually, even though the computer's saying activate, it won't, the signal doesn't come out. This will prove that the signal's coming out, and hence you know the device itself or the wiring to the device has got a problem. But usually you got to have a computer to do that. I mean, a scan tool that is advanced enough to do both ways, where it can tell the computer to actuate things. If you don't have that, then the only way to make that happen is to either wait for that event to happen or simulate it by making the conditions appropriate for that to happen. So once again, a bit advanced for your general auto mechanics. That's also very nice. If you want to scan through this real quick, they go over some of the features. Looks like the tip resistance to ground is about 350 kilo ohms. And that would be when you're doing voltage tests. And you can pretty much see everything else. You get 50 ohms pull up on the tip when you're doing the driver test. That's with the computer test. And it talks about a few other pretty things, like, you know, when the lights come on and don't come on for responding. Circuit, you can do up to 8 amps, and it's a thermal auto resetting, so that's nice. It tells you you can actually go up to 25 amps for 2 seconds without the thermal fuse tripping. And then some temperatures, place to keep some notes, and there you go. Nice manual. On to the rest of the component to see the component itself. Now this is their logo, and I must say I've seen this logo for years, and I've always thought it was the cheesiest logo ever. In fact, it looks like something a 5th grader or a 6th grader would do out of Photoshop. No respect at all when I see font like that. But that said, the reputation grew on me, and they never changed the logo. They stuck with it. Okay, fine, there's some pride there. But they even give you a sticker. And now I've actually got to the point where it's like, okay, now you've reached a point with it where now it's just going to be acceptable. I'm going to be okay with this stupid font. It's kind of what auto guys kind of like, that flare. Sometimes I'm not really into that type of flare on anything. But yeah, okay, it's there. I'll accept it and put it on my toolbox. But always didn't. In fact, I stayed away from this product for years because of this, just because of the font. Believe it or not, that is true. But its reputation caught up with it. So, okay, so it's a nice box. I will probably keep it in there because it will keep it safe and keep it clean. And let's open it up. Won't be a lot more to this video, I hope. Okay, so there's the 2 tips and a fuse. This fuse, by the way, is for the ground here. This is fused going back to the battery for over current and stuff when testing, when you're pressing this button, basically. But if you want to use this thing in a mode in which you're just going to go between this ground lead and the device, kind of like a digital voltmeter, well, then you have the potential of putting a lot of current through this poor little wire. And that's what this extra fuse is here. This is your little extra ground clip. And it comes with the probe. It's got a really nice tip on it for digging in there. They do make even more stronger tips if you want to get an updated tip that's got like a hardened tip. Let's see, let's get into the baggage a little bit more. Okay, so there's 23 feet of this. That'll get you around the vehicle quite a bit. Now this is heavy duty. I mean, and it comes apart. And you got the 4 leads on there, so you can put extensions on there if you need to do something even further away. And these are These aren't the big ones. That's why I like these size. After they get into the power probe hook, these are just gigantic. So this is a nice size, and the cables are really nice. They're quite flexible. They're not stiff at all. Now this is something I do not like. I actually wrote a letter to them and, I don't know, cussed them out, I guess. And that is, I always hated the earlier power probes, the 3s and earlier. I hated the ground connector that they have for doing things. Now, this is always flopping around. You know, it's granted you got the cable out there, but once you got your cable hooked up and that's off to the side, then you're left with the business side of this thing, right? And you got this thing flopping around all the time and getting hooked on things and getting banged around and whatnot. And granted, there's a little collar on here that goes down, so it can kind of hold it, you know, a little bit out of the way. But that's always flopping around. It would have been so much better if this was something that could just plug into the bottom, and that way you would have a better strain relief for just the one big wire that goes to the battery, because you hook that up to the battery for power. This thing doesn't use any batteries internally; it just uses the power from your vehicle, which is good because it tests your vehicle battery right away. You immediately have that test out of the way. And then you could basically, if you needed this, you could plug it in. And think about it, you can't use this as is. You have to go get a tip or something anyway, based on where you're back probing or poking or whatever. And so you got to go get something anyway. Why not have the whole thing? You just go get the whole ground pigtail and plug it in. And this would be even a more ergonomic and usable, because most of the time you just want to use the tip. And like I say, with the version 4 now, you just plug it in, and then there's your sharp tip. You go in there and you can do your voltage test. You toggle the rocker up, and you can power something if you're in the right mode, and you can toggle it down, and you can ground something. Granted, if you toggle the wrong way, and that thermal fuse is gonna go on you real quick. There's a speaker here, so you can hear it make noise. It also has lights saying, you know, good ground or good power, or in other modes it'll have both light or flash at you, telling you, you know, that the test is successful or not. So we'll take a good look at it so that you understand what is a good close-up look like. Comes with that. We'll take that off. We will power it up here in a minute. Comes with the logo at the top. And this is to take it off in the back. That's interesting. They get a plus sign and a minus sign there. Well, I wonder why. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Got me on that. And so you can go through the menu or select modes with these buttons, and we'll see that in a minute. It's got a really good plastic. It's a nice, hard, strong-looking plastic, and it's got like a weather seal rubber between the two sides. It's funny it doesn't line up quite right there. I don't know if you see that. You would think that would line up with that, and it does that on both sides. I don't know if they just didn't calculate that right, and it should be, or if that's so you can get something in there and pop this top off. At any rate, you get 2 bright LEDs. We'll test how bright that is here, and that way you can light up your surface, which you're testing, so you can use it kind of like a flashlight. If you don't really need a circuit test at the moment, you can still, you know, look at things. That's nice. And you can see where you can get your screwdriver in there and pop up that button. And so that'd be nice. We can even do that real quick. So you just lever that up, and if you're pushing your button a lot for adding power or not, there it is. And so you just order another one of these. I did check, they were not expensive. And this is like a little seal. They put like a little seal down there so that when this snaps in, it gives you a little bit more of in case you got moisture or something going around. It will seal good. Okay. Let's take a look at why there's a plus and a minus here. I don't know, and let's take a look at that resettable fuse inside. Okay. Well, there's the resettable fuse, and that way, if this is actuated too many times or goes through too many cycles and it doesn't recover after you let it cool off, then you just pry this up, and then that just flops right out, and there you have. And you can get this from their website. They do show this is orderable, PC8A, and it's got a 30-00041 on it. and it's just a thermal, it's just a piece of bimetal that heats up, and once it heats up enough, it just, this side disconnects. It just sort of like bends and pops. Kind of like the same thing that turns off your coffee pot. So, pretty clever. You can see some of the circuit board in there, so they got a really nice seal all the way around this thing so that you won't get moisture in there, because right in there you can see the circuit board. Boy, I'd love to get into that. I probably will have to. Might be an upcoming video where me ripping this thing apart and voiding the warranty. Now it does have a USB port. I knew it did because I saw it on the online manual. It references it that it exists, but it does not say what it's for. I can only assume that it's an emergency field upgrade thing, like if something horrible goes wrong and they want to send out a firmware update to people, then they'd be able to at least send them a cable and have them install the firmware update. But any idea why there's a plus and a minus? Man, I'm baffled. Well, I'm going to put this back in. Well, we have it set up to our bench power supply, so we can show it quickly. And we turn on the bench power supply. Gives you a beep and a buzz. A pretty screen comes up. That was my serial number, which matches the back. Has LED lights. Has two of them that are on all the time, and it throws a really good beam. It's hard to tell because I got a lot of lighting in here, but this, you'll see anything in a dark space. You won't have a problem with that. Interesting, if this is the volts DC that comes in immediately, and as you see, your toggle switch is plus and minus. So if I push up, it'll give me what's the positive voltage, and it's going to buzz. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the buzzers because the buzzer's there. I just don't want to hear it, but it's a real good buzz. And you can see it says there's 10.01, and it's very accurate. If I just tweaking my power supply ever so slightly, and it is as accurate as a several $100 bench power supply. And I am able to do that by a 100th of a volt, or 10 millivolts at a time. Then I can go ground. Now the sound is different. Let me turn the sound back on. There's ground, power, ground, and that just means you're providing power or ground. Take the tip off, we can check its own ground, so we'll just plug it in here. And it's going to say 0.02. It would be buzzing right now if we didn't have the speaker off. It'd be giving you a clean ground signal and a green light saying good ground, green for ground. Now I have these hooked up to the same power supply, so this would be like having component wires coming out to something. And so this is the same. This is, rather than going through the ground, you're going through some sort of a component wire, and it's going to be a little bit different. I'll clear that with the clear button over here, and yeah, it just clears. So 0.02 volts, and the green light is on, and it would be making the ground sound right now. I'll let you hear it. That's the ground sound. And then I'm going to switch over and hook up the power, and now you see that would be showing a good 12 volts. It shows the min and the max. We'll clear that, so that's showing strong, and that's the high pitch for that. Now you wouldn't want to provide power to something that's shorted like this, but you would if you're testing a component at the same point in time if you're in the next mode. So if we go down to the feed test, okay, now it's basically saying, hey, this is your battery voltage, and at this point I get an X if I use this button, because it's saying you can't provide power or ground to the tip. You're just testing, and you're testing resistance. What's the battery resistance? What's the tip what's the voltage at the battery, voltage at the tip, and the resistance overall of the line. Now, and I could test that now. I could plug into this, and I could say, it'll immediately say, oh, that's ground, and then I don't have to switch anything. I just go right over here, and it goes, oh, that's power, you know, and it'll tell you what the power is at the battery and at the tip, and say there's no resistance. I could do it with this guy too, which might be a bit of resistance here. No, there's not. I can clear it and let it test again, and yeah, no, it's 0 ohms. So, you know, that's working great. So there you can see I'm turning down my bench power supply, and it'll actually get to a point where it kind of gives you this flakiness just from having low voltage by grounding the tip. See, it wants to let you know you're at 8 volts. Your source battery is not good enough. and then I can come back up again. And that's a nice feature, so you know that you hooked up to a battery that doesn't have enough power. But anyway, on to the other modes. This is the resistance mode. The two V's are in green if you can't tell on my camera. Shows you resistance of the line. Go to the AC, and this will test AC signals. But they say don't hook this up to your mains, it'll blow it. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't imagine why, but that's what they say. So this is the peak to peak with min-max. This frequency mode, I can definitely simulate frequency. It gives a pulse width and stuff. So I'm just whacking the tip. I'm doing my own frequency, but that's just simulating. That's nothing real. And then fuel injection tests, no point in showing it, other than it just will give you all the diagnostic values if you're back probing your fuel injectors. This is for finding short circuits, but you got to have that ECT tester, and then this can be poked in and help you find those broken wires. And then this is the device test. So you're simulating. It looks like your ODB2 socket, and it's going to test that your computer controls are working. And then you're back to volts DC again. This is the default mode it comes up in. So it just keeps rolling. You don't have to go back up. It just keeps cycling around, which is a nice feature. I like that. So that all looks really good. Very nicely done. Removable tips for other things, the test leads that we got. We'll show that here coming up. I'm going to do one more test to show this thing is working fine for testing, and then that's going to be the end of this video. The next video will be the unboxing of the lead tests for this and why that is important to have too. Okay, I have this hooked up to my truck battery now because my truck's in here. Let's check the truck battery first. So I guess I could go into feed test and do that. I can see it's 12.25. Guess it could be topped off a little bit. Could go back into that mode. Now I can test that too by just hitting this button up as if I'm going to provide voltage, and it'll tell me what it is. And it also reads, wow, that is so loud. This is sickening loud. But that's good because the car is running and making noise. You're in your loud garage. You want this thing to be noisy. And you have the option to turn that off. And so that's good too. Just got to click it just about any time you want to turn off the sound. And I can see I got the 12.2 volts there. And I could test the ground too, but that's kind of meaningless. That's just saying I'm making good ground to this thing. But I have a known good window motor, so I got to hook up to it, and I got to probe the tip. I got to provide power to it. So I got to get ground. So of course it comes with one of these. And this is the next video, which is going to be about the lead things. We'll show you why some different leads are going to be good. I took that shroud off just because it kind of gets in the way for getting in there and getting the test. And we see the motor here. I should put a piece of tape on that so you can. So it actually looks like something's happening when it actually get a flag there for you. And then now, well, I guess I could start off by just testing whether or not what's the resistance of this thing. So I could go into that mode first. And essentially I'm going to be testing the resistance of this motor. Is the motor resistance correct? And there's no pushing of buttons in when you're doing this. You're just using it as a voltmeter. So I want to keep it on screen here. Can get in here and test. And it immediately goes, oh, that's a 1.4 ohm circuit you have there, mister. You have 12.23 volts at the battery and almost 0 volts at the tip. And so yeah, that's that's about the right resistance you would expect for a coil in a motor. Now let's go and drive this thing. So we'll go back to the voltage DC, which is also your ability to drive. I'm trying to get everything in frame here. So that's saying, hey, you got ground there. That's just meaning you've got a circuit. This is ground here, and it sees that ground through the motor. More importantly, when I click the forward button, will it power the motor? Here I go. Yeah. And then notice it goes from you got good ground to you have good power. Let me turn off that. I'll turn off the sound. So now no more sound, but you can see you've got good power, and that motor's just chugging right along. So that's really good. And of course, if I was testing motors, in this case, I could reverse my clip because this is a window motor, and then I could power the other way, and it should turn the other way. So yeah, it's a good motor. Now, why I wanted this, one of the reasons I have this is I have this chunky bastard that came out of my truck, my F-150, and window's not going up and down. So let's do the same test with that and see what we come up with. Mind you, I did already test that there's voltage coming to the motor, so I knew there was 12 volts coming. And maybe we'll bump over there and show that you can test that you have good power going using this as well. And first we'll check the resistance, so we'll go into that mode. Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, so it says, so that's actually changing, that's fluctuating a little bit, in that it's sensing that there's a good circuit there. It's getting ground from here to there. That's happy, but it seems like it's fluctuating, which really has to do with this. This is not a good probe, and we're going to look at probes in the next video. And if you don't have this in there good, a way to get in there and really make a good connection with another type of probe, this is kind of a pointless test because you're almost wondering if you're holding things properly. Let's go back into our feed test now. Into our voltage test, and we'll see if we can power this thing. So we put it in there, it actually sees it, and we will test. Yeah, see, it's definitely not moving the motor, it's dropping the voltage, everything's bad. We got 12 volts, and we're in here and we hook up and we draw 11.9 and nothing's happening. Yeah. So the motor's basically just not able to turn, so it's basically a dead short, but there's enough of resistance in this coil to keep from tripping this thing. But it's drawing a lot of current because this is getting warm. So it is definitely heating up. If I'd held it there any longer, the fuse would have probably went in this guy because I'm drawing a lot of current through a motor that's not turning. So here we have the door panels taken off, so we can test our window motor. Come up and see if we can get this in frame. So this is the connector right here that goes to the window motor. It has two wires. The control is here for up and down. And what we'll do is we'll take the power probe and we'll go right into the feed test. And now we're going to be testing whether or not, and if we get a sound, I don't even have to show this to you, but if we get the sound, we'll get a low tone for good ground and a high tone for a good power. It means it will be a functioning 12 volts or a functioning ground. Initially they'll both be ground until I hit a button, and then that just determines whether it goes up or down. So we'll go in, should hear ground. Yep, then I hit the up button. That must be the downside, go down. There. Now we get a high tone because that's the go up side. I let go, and it goes back to ground. So the sound is giving us everything. You really don't have to see the display. That's what's nice about this tool. So I go to the other side. Now I get ground, so now this will be the up side. It automatically switches to tell you you have good power. Not just 12 volts, but good power. And then it goes back to sensing a good ground because there's a relay in the cab. But yeah, that's a quick, fast way of not only just testing you have voltage, but that you have good power feed to your window motor. Well, I've become a believer and an acceptor of the font, and it now has a home. I need more stickers. Why can't I make shorter videos? Maybe I can cut some of that stuff out. But there's my review of the Power Probe 4. Really good product. The features are much better than the Power Probe 3. It's very ruggedly built. It's an excellent tool for working on vehicles. The price is great now. I mean, $153. I'll put a link at Amazon below, and that'll support the channel too. And this is a great tool to have. My only, not even complaints, is I wish it came with some Velcro straps or something to make the cords a little bit more manageable. I already told you I wish this ground pigtail was pluggable and unpluggable, and I wish it came with a full complete set of leads for this thing, like this lead test, which we'll go over in the next video. There'll be another video for this. This is what gives you the ability to pierce wires, hook into things, do that test like I was doing with the window motor, hook up to it easier. It just makes doing things like back probing and stuff easier. I'll show my back probes that I bought for this. It'd be nice if they had that with it, just because you need it. It just should be a part of the product, you know. But if it's going to be separate, it doesn't need to be $100. That's why I went with this one, because it was 50 and not 100. So, but yet I actually think that this one is a better kit than the one that they want you to get for the Power Probe 4. We'll see that in that video. And then even then, you've got to get some really good back probes and stuff too. So I hope I did justice to this. There's really not a lot of videos out there on the Power Probe 4. Hopefully this adds to that. Not much more to say. I'm just really excited to have it. I'm glad it is even better than I thought it was going to be. If you have any questions, put them in the show notes. Give me a thumbs up. That helps the subscription rating of my channel. And I will have more videos about the Power Probe, and I'll probably make a playlist out of them using some of the other features. But you saw the two main features, the volts DC and the feed test, to know that you got a good circuit, because that really helps. Green means you got good power. Brown, you got good ground. It's not just a simple voltmeter test. It actually tells you you got good ability to drive a circuit. And that takes a question out of your mind, am I still dealing with a circuit problem, or am I dealing with a component problem? It helps you find that real quick. And it's got a built-in flashlight, So thumbs up, thanks for joining. See you in the next video on the leads.